Does it feel like you're leaving money on the table? Struggling to increase your productivity and profitability? Check out the Personal Power Transformation Program at www.focusedpracticaldreamer.com/transformation and apply for a consultation with Jean Border to get things moving in the right direction. Welcome to another episode of the Focused Practical Dreamer's Journey podcast, Energy Work to Better Your Business, hosted by energy healer Jean Border. It's not just about dreaming. It's about making those dreams a practical reality. Subscribe to us via your favorite network by visiting our website at www.focusedpracticaldreamer.com. Now, get ready. Your journey to success starts here.
Hello, everyone. It's your host, Jean Border, with another episode of the Focused Practical Dreamer's Journey podcast, where we talk everything energy and mindset related and how to use that to better your business. I have a really cool special guest with me today, but before I get there, I want to remind my listeners that if you're having any tension or stress in your body about financial issues, either the state of the country that you live in or your personal finances or your business finances, it would most likely be in your best interest to make any financial decisions from a place of calm rather than fear or reaction. So if you click on the link below, jeanborder.com/vow, there will be a few EFT tapping protocols that will, if you go through these just a few times, will help your nervous system calm down so that you can make financial decisions from a place of calm and peace rather than tension and fear and reaction. And that might serve you better in the long run. So anyway, just click on the link below or jeanborder.com/vow. And so we have a really cool special guest here today. This is Shadi Sadeghi, and she is a life coach, and in my world, she's also an emotion code practitioner, which I am too, so that's pretty fun. So I want to say hello to Shadi. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you, Jean?
I'm doing fine. So tell the listeners a little bit about you. What do you do?
Sure. Well, I am many things. I am a Jungian life coach, a certified Jungian life coach, as well as a certified emotion code practitioner. I'm a global traveler. I'm a resident of Southern California, and I am a recovering corporate professional.
Ooh, let's start with the last one. Recovering corporate professional. You had it on a podcast. So talk to me about the journey that took you from there to here.
The journey that took me from there to here was very organic and natural, and then very challenging because, as they say, the conditioning, the programming is deep. You know, that corporate mentality was still in me, is still in me sometimes, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it took a period of adjustment when I started my own business. I had been working for somebody else since I was 15, since my first job. I've always had a boss. I've always had someone else's strategy, somebody else's vision that I was, a part of or on board with, and just cashing in, or punching in rather my time card. And it was a safe place to be. And that's kind of how I'm a daughter of immigrants. So my family really just came here with the American dream in mind. And that is the safe route, is take a job, take a corporate job, become a corporate professional. And there's certain metrics in what is deemed successful, what is not. And those are your only doors, So for the longest time, that was in my mind. And I had to go through that. I realize that now as a small business owner that I had to experience the other side. That's the duality of the world that we live in order to realize that, wait, I can take what's useful from that experience, that wisdom, and I can also make it my own and find freedom in becoming a small business owner too.
Let's go now to the traveler part. Talk to me. I'm an Air Force brat. My dad traveled all the time I was growing up. I went to 10 schools in 11 years before I graduated in 11 years. And then he retired and I went stir crazy and knew I'd have to get a job where I could travel and somebody else would pay for it. And that's exactly what I did. So talk to me about your travels.
Yeah, that's what I did in the last profession I was in. I did international business development. And I remember when I kind of transitioned into that, I was like, okay, well, if I'm going to work for corporate, if I'm going to stay in corporate because I wasn't ready to leave yet, then I want to do international business and I want to travel and I want to see the world. So I've always felt like there is more to the world than just the town I grew up in. Since I was a child, I was always just taken aback by the world. There's so much more to see. And I did study abroad. That really lit the fire in me when I was in college. I did it in Spain and it was super scary, but super expanding. And that lit the fire in me. And since my 20s, basically, I travel when I can. And when I officially left corporate, I ended up doing 10 countries in 10 months. I wanted to have the experience of a digital nomad. That's like all the rage right now. I started off being a digital nomad, but then I really realized I needed a sabbatical, like a full-on sabbatical, because I had left corporate and I had left the fishbowl of corporate America. And so I started traveling and
yeah, the traveling kind of gets in your system, at least it does for me. So I've traveled since I was very small up until I went on 2 really big cruises last year. I went to South America and Antarctica, and then I spent a month in Australia. So, it doesn't really go away. It's still there in the back of your head.
absolutely.
Yeah. So talk to me about the business that you have created now that you've settled down on the traveling just slightly.
So I had become trained and certified in Jungian psychology-based coaching years ago, but I was still, doing the corporate thing, safety net thing, living in Washington, D.C., but my soul wanted more, and I didn't know what that meant, or I didn't know what it looked like. And I was just feeling like I wasn't growing. I had outgrown sort of where I was living, the world I was living in, the world I had created, really. And so when I had become trained and certified in the Jungian coaching, it was mostly for a selfish reason. I wanted to understand, why does my mind work the way it does? Why have I created this life? What does it mean to want more? And I've always been a seeker since I was a child. And then I had a vision of being on my deathbed and never having experienced life in Europe and as a local. And I felt that pang of regret, like at whatever age I was, in my 80s, 90s. And I was like, what is holding me back? And that's when the spark just lit me up to quit everything and move abroad, and bought a one-way ticket to go to Italy. And I had wanted to leave my job. I knew I wanted to leave DC. I knew eventually I would move to California, that the next chapter of my life would be in Southern California. I saw that. And I was like, I have no idea what's between here and there, but my soul is calling me to go to Europe and have that experience. I figured out a way to do it, because when you decide you want something, it's amazing how the path just opens up for you. And that's when, because I was encountering challenges and observing how things were working or some things were coming up in my reality, that's when I was observing my own mind. And that's when the coach training kicked in for me. I began to understand my mind more in certain situations, in unfamiliar situations, what kind of people I was attracting into my experiences. It was a experience of self-observation during that time. And that's when I was like, oh my gosh, I have to help other people do this. So now that I know this, I need to guide others through this process of really just pursuing what their soul desires. Life is short. If, COVID has taught us anything, that period, is that it's time to really stop settling for things that don't make us happy, for mediocre life, and to really just take a leap. And if I can do it, if I can walk the walk, then I want to help others through it. And it doesn't mean that I would take them through, because I've seen a lot of other coaches do that as well. It's like teaching them to quit their job or to move abroad. And that's beautiful. But my purpose is to take people back to their soul, the true essence of who they are, which means you have to unlayer all the gunk and the conditioning. And a lot of it is unconscious. And that's the unconscious work that comes up. And so that's when I started to coach while I was living abroad. And I got my first client totally by accident while I was living abroad. And that's when it just kind of snowballed. And when I moved to California, it became a full-time gig.
Cool. Okay, where in Italy?
So I started in Rome and Florence, and I lived in northern Italy, essentially. I call that northern Italy. And then what I did was I hopped around because I had to leave the zone because I was a tourist. You're limited by the 90-day tourist visa. And I left. I went to Cyprus, and I went to, I came back to DC for a wedding, and then I flew to India for another wedding, and I went to the Maldives. So I was around, and then I circled back, and I ended up finishing my travels in Italy as well. And I got to see the parts that I hadn't seen earlier because it was too dang cold. I went to Milan, Venice, Lake Como, all of the little cutesy towns in between, Bologna and all that as well. But I was primarily in Rome and Florence when I first moved there.
Cool. I lived in Naples for 1.5 years.
Oh, you were in the South. That's amazing. That's like
traveled all over Europe. Yeah.
Yeah, it's easy when you're there.
Yeah. It's like going to another state. I mean, because Europe is so small. It really is, relatively speaking, right? It's like here in the States, it would be going to another state. It's just so close.
Exactly.
So yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Do you go back?
I have not been. I left there and went to Northern California for 3 years, and now I'm in Ohio. So I have not been back since then. I've been other places because I've traveled so much there that, I like new experiences. I was going to say,
yeah, there's other parts of the world to see. Yeah, for sure.
But I got to go to a lot of places while I was there. So,
I bet.
Yeah.
4 years. Yeah, you probably saw it all.
Yeah, it was fun. You said it was cold. I'm like, Naples wasn't cold.
Oh, I know. And yes, I was, it's a dry cold. It's like Mediterranean. It's a Mediterranean arid climate. Yeah. So I like to experience the South.
Yeah. So anyway, back to what we were originally talking about. So how do your clients find you?
So my clients find me primarily through referrals. So the clientele network. And I got my first clients that way. I've had workshops, public speaking events where they just find me. They come to me. Online, I have an online presence on Instagram as well, through podcasts that I've done. They've found me that way, but primarily referrals, and through friends, family, and former clients as well.
Are you remote or in person? How does your business?
Fully remote. So fully remote, my one-on-one coaching program is, it's fully remote. It's a 3-month program, and I have 6-month programs as well. And we connect bi-weekly through talk coaching. And I have clients all over the world. So as long as it's within a reasonable time frame for me. Australia is a little tough right now, but that's what I love. And that's, that's how I want it to be. You have further reach that way.
So what do people come to you for?
Typically, it is through major life transitions. So I see everything as a transition. Getting married is a transition, having children is a transition, going through divorce is a transition. Starting a business is a transition. Selling your business is a transition. Moving is a transition, and these are all experiences of life, right, that everyone goes through, but we tend to gloss over them very quickly and not fully process. It's almost like an initiation into a newer, another level of who you are and your potential. And so it's an opportunity for growth, for personal growth. And I think that when we are going through these transitions, we forget that obstacles are part of the course. And we can, and for many people, we can retreat from them as opposed to going into them and leaning into them. And that is when we need a coach the most. And I know it served me in my own life. And it's typically people that are feeling stuck. They're feeling stuck. They are dissatisfied, even though they've done it all. They've accomplished so much in their lives. They've checked off all the boxes. I've done everything I set out to do in my life. Why do I feel this void? Why do I feel dissatisfied? Why don't I feel happy? And typically it's people like that that are really wanting, they don't know it yet, but they're wanting to reconnect with the truth of who they are, which requires integrating a lot of emotional energy and reconnecting with their life force energy. And that's when I got into the emotion code, because it's all about the unconscious mind. We are creating our lives. We are powerful creators. This is where the laws of manifestation come into play. And I want to help people experience that, but from an empowered place. And because they have the power, they are creating their lives the whole time. It's just a matter of really making the unconscious more conscious, and then consciously choosing different patterns than from their past patterns. And that's what I take them through.
And how do you start that process?
You start it with shadow work, baby. So shadow work is the process of what Jung called making the unconscious conscious. So finding out what they're stuck in. And this could be in their love life. It could be in their professional life. It could be in finances, even their physical health, because usually the physical health is expressing where there's resistance in the unconscious mind. And guiding them through essentially visualizations so that they can, I don't call it hypnosis, but it's a sort of visualization so that they see what is in their own way. What is the obstacle in their own mind? It's themselves. And then in a practical way, what comes up is we assess triggers. So anything that we experience in the external world that is triggering to us is showing us where we want to make that aspect of ourselves more conscious and free it. It's like an iceberg. And I'm slowly guiding them towards bringing their own iceberg, which is our unlimited potential or unlimited power, above water more and more and more. And travel is a beautiful way of doing that. And a lot of people don't realize that travel is expanding our minds in very subtle ways that sometimes we're not aware of. And dream analysis, of course. If we can't talk about Jung without talking about dreams and the unconscious mind.
So talk to me about triggers.
Mm-hmm.
If that's a big part of the beginning of your program, what kind of triggers might people look for to see if they are repeating behaviors or if something is triggering an old pattern or an old reaction?
Yeah, that's it. So that's exactly it. So the triggers are our past playing out in our present. So it can be a boss. Perhaps they have a boss that they just keep having a conflict. They keep having the same conflicts with, or it could be their partner, their spouse. And everyone is a mirror to us. So everyone is a mirror in the sense that they're not reflecting exactly who we are, but they are showing to us an aspect of ourselves that we have repressed, rejected, or denied. that wants to be free, and it's energy, and that's emotion. That's the emotional energy that I was talking about. So whatever gives us an emotional charge, and the triggers are what are the bad emotions that kind of trigger in us. If we're angry or frustrated, or if we're sad and we're feeling, that lack of fulfillment that I was talking about earlier. But triggers are also, or people are also showing us our gold, our inner gold. And that is also repressed and rejected and denied to some extent. If we grew up in a household, for example, where speaking for yourself, speaking up was not acceptable, socially acceptable, or acceptable in the family, then we may have repressed that ability to really speak our truth or be authentic. And so that's in us. So if we see or experience somebody that is bold, direct, sassy, then that might trigger us, because it's pointing to an aspect in ourselves that we pushed away a long time ago. And it wants to be freed. It doesn't mean that we're immediately going to flip and become that, extroverted person if we were an introvert our whole lives. We're just integrating that energy. We're blending it so that you're not just an introvert. You're not just an extrovert. You can be both. It's a blend of both. And then when you realize how that resisting that energy, resisting that trait or behavior or characteristic unconsciously, we're not aware of it. When you realize that, all of a sudden you start to see the matrix in your mind of like, oh my God, how many experiences in my life have I lived just because I was identifying with this introvert and I was not allowing my voice to be expressed. I was not speaking up in meetings. I was not asking for the promotion. You start to take your power back and realize how you are responsible fully for everything in your life. And if I created those scenarios, then I can undo it the more and more I make the unconscious conscious. And I can actually go towards what I want, experiences that I want, which is more abundance and more fulfillment and speaking up more, for example, if that's that, your journey to integrate.
And that sounds so easy. You just realize it's there and you change it, right?
I know, right? I wish it was. I can speak from my, personal experience transitioning from that corporate identity, right, into this working for myself identity, being my own boss. It's like, oh, that sounds great. Sure, I can just do that, because there is an element of spirituality in all of us that really helps us to not get sucked into the triggers, not get sucked into these obstacles that we run into, which are inevitable when we're starting something new, when we are stepping outside of our comfort zone and our patterns, right? And most of us don't know that. We think, okay, I'm going to set out to start my own business. And then you start running into roadblocks. And then most people think, shit, I don't know what I'm doing. I can't do this. And so they retreat, right? But if you are practicing transcending your mind and transcending the ego, and you are not just this physical body, but there is a greater purpose, there's a greater wisdom to really your desire to set out and become a business person. When you begin to practice stillness and meditation to transcend that physical body, that chatter mind, that negative mind that is feeling discouraged at the moment, then you start to tap into the power of who you are and why you're doing it and why you are setting out to do business. And that's really crucial too. And it's not just woo-woo, spirituality, love and light, all that crap, which you see so much in Southern California. But it's really, it's connecting to the soul of who you are, and that I'm not just doing this just to make money. I'm doing this for greater reasons, for greater impact. Perhaps I'm doing it really because it lights me up, and the corporate life may not light you up anymore. And so when you are connected to soul while you run into those obstacles, then it just makes it so much easier. You're not so sucked into the obstacles and the challenges and the setbacks, which are inevitable. So it's interesting. It's not easy.
So I'm going to segue a little bit into, because you keep mentioning it, the emotional aspect of what you do and how you incorporate the emotion code practice into the life coach practice. Mm-hmm. How does that work? Is that with all the clients or just ones that are more touchy-feely, or what? How does that work?
The opposite, actually. It's the ones that are more resistant to feeling and to really working with the emotions. So I give my clients the option, but typically the people that come to me are pretty self-aware, and they're aware of they've been on the personal growth journey themselves. They've read all the self-help books, or they've done therapy, and they know that they're being called to go deeper, particularly to overcome an obstacle. Or that transition, that life change, life transition. And so working with the emotion, Jung said that the transformation is in the emotion. So emotion is energy in motion. And, Eastern philosophy, traditional medicine, ancient cultures have referred to, the life force energy, chi energy, right? It's just always going through us. And so when we have experiences through our lives, which are inevitable, where we cannot process everything, as you know personally, and through your work, we cannot possibly process every emotion or experience in that moment. We will very subtly and unconsciously repress them. And so it becomes stuck energy, like a river. It's like a pebble. A pebble is blocking, or a stone is just blocking the flow of that river. And the way I approached it, before I even got involved with the emotion code, with Jungian psychology, depth psychology coaching, was that the triggers were pointing to the emotional charge. So with the conscious approach, we are able to get at the unconscious mind, because the emotional charge, and it could be, oh, I hate this person, or I love this person. That's the emotional charge. That is a clue. That is a telltale sign that there is an emotional charge that we're poking at. Haha, that's the good stuff. Because we're reaching the almost the edge of our comfort zone. And it's safe to kind of not look at that emotion, because it's a protective mechanism. It was designed there. It was trapped, or it was repressed once upon a time at some point in our lives, because we were in a situation where we had to survive and to be safe and to be socially accepted, really. And it is natural, and it is a part of life to repress or reject, or, I see it as that is kind of our challenge. That is the journey of this life, is to uncover these trapped emotions, or these repressed emotions. And so through the coaching work, I started to help my clients through that. And when you integrate it, it's really about feeling it and observing it from a higher mind, from your soul, from an infinite mind, not your logical mind, because the logical mind hates anything that's uncomfortable. It hates discomfort. It hates negative feelings. Our brain is designed, our primitive brain has been designed to move us away from pain and take us towards pleasure. So that is typically how we have been conditioned to avoid anything that's uncomfortable, which includes uncomfortable emotions like anger, sadness, regret, frustration. I mean, you just name it. And society really reinforces that, unfortunately. Our culture, it really, we go through our life journey kind of disconnected from the truth and the authenticity and that soul print of who we are and why we're here and what we're here to experience, which is freaking the whole point of life, right? It's not just to, get the safe job and live in the safe town and do the right thing all the time. I mean, those can be part of your experience, but there's more to life than that.
So talk to me a little bit about the emotion code. Some of our listeners don't have a clue what that is.
Really? Well, not me. You're the pro. Why don't you tell us, Jean?
Yeah, I know.
You have way more. What, like a decade of experience? But I can tell you about how I got into it. I actually reconnected with the first life coach that I had many years ago, the first Jungian life coach that I had. I reconnected with her out of the blue last year, and she had been trained in this modality. And so she was telling me about it. She was like, do you want to experience it? I was like, sure. But it was mostly for, I think it was for actual life goals that I had. It wasn't necessarily because I had a physical ailment. or anything like that. And so I started working with her, and I was blown away that someone who lives thousands of miles away from me, I trusted her, I knew her, was actually making my body feel certain things, and that she would tell me, I remember the first time she did it, I was on a call with a client, and she told me, I'm going to do your session this afternoon, where she would connect by proxy. Again, I'm going into the assumption that your audience knows what it is, and I'll go back. But she connected by proxy, and she did an emotion code release session while I was in a one-on-one coaching session. And it was almost like you could kind of feel like a little flutter in your body. And I was feeling it in my body, and I'm like, holy crap, what is this? And then I felt a release the next day. And that's, I talked with her, and I'm like, what was that? Oh my God, that was my first experience into it. But essentially, how I reconcile the emotion code with the Jungian, the mind work that I do, the Jungian coaching work that I do, is that, and in Jungian psychology, this is part of the study, is that we are all connected. We are all connected, and that is part of the collective unconscious, which is an aspect of the psyche that we all have access to. But most of us are, conditioned not to tap into that, because that requires going inward and unshackling yourself from your past conditioning and your past traumas and your past experiences. But the more that you go into that, the more you do that, which is the shadow work, then the more you are connected to every other mind on this planet and all living things. And that's pure consciousness. That is pure consciousness. That is the life force that exists in everything. That's, the energy field that everything living has, whether we see it or not. And so, knowing that and having a direct experience of that through the Jungian coaching work that I had done, where the esoteric kind of became part of my world more and more, and in strange ways, where you would have synchronicities. You're thinking of someone, all of a sudden they show up, or just these knowings. My intuitive abilities had really strengthened, and the emotion code, to answer your question, is a process in which we connect with the with another person, with their permission, to ask a series of questions. We connect to their unconscious body, to their subconscious body, their unconscious mind, through a series of questions. We ask what is essentially blocking them from healing. We all have the capacity to heal in our own way. That through this life force energy, through the essence and truth of who we are, we have the ability to heal. And it is just what is blocking that healing is the conditioning, is the past experiences, the past traumas, and on top of that, our belief systems that we developed from those defenses. And when an emotion code practitioner is able to connect with your energy field, your mind body, to know what is the cause of, for example, what is the cause of the eczema on this person's hand, for example. The unconscious mind knows all. It is connected to this life force energy source. We all have access to it, and some of us more than others. And when you connect to the other, to the energy body, you are able to get the answers from them, from their own wisdom, to understand what is the root cause. And it can be traced back to perhaps it's toxins. It could be food toxins. It could be allergens, or it could be an emotional experience and certain emotions that are causing the eczema to flare up in the body. And that's interesting because I don't know if you've heard of Louise Hay. Louise Hay, and she was a prominent thought leader in personal development, but especially spiritual causes for physical symptoms. And this is also in Eastern medicine as well, and that there is a spiritual or emotional cause to most, if not all, of our physical symptoms. And so an emotion code practitioner can find the root of those symptoms or the cause of those symptoms and release it with a magnetic swipe on the meridian. And then that person experiences a release, which is what I was experiencing when I had a practitioner do that for me. And it feels like those rocks that are blocking that flow of the river, really those rocks are just dissipated. They are integrated. It's energy. So energy is never destroyed. Energy can only be changed or transmuted and released. And so when it's released, it goes back to where it came from, which is source. And then that person is free to experience life in a healthier way, or the eczema may start disappearing. Whatever symptom they're experiencing starts to dissipate.
I don't know if I can get that to your subject. Yeah, it's a really interesting subject.
Yeah.
And there are very simple explanations and they're very lengthy explanations. And the explanation depends on the person you're speaking with.
There you go.
The point of reference is, right? And you touched on so many things that in my head, I'm like, okay, I want to hit that. I want to hit that. I want to hit that. But some of the things that you mentioned, and I'm gonna start with intuition.
Yeah.
If you become familiar with the emotion code and begin practicing that protocol, it's just a very simple protocol, very basic. Anybody can do it if you just take the time.
It's in a book. It's all in a book. Anyone can do it. Yeah.
Yeah. Doesn't cost you anything to learn. There's all kinds of YouTube videos. What you will need to teach yourself how to do is something called muscle testing, so that you get very strong, very firm, yes, no, true, false answers within your body. And what happens is as you begin to trust those answers that you hear, your intuition will begin to come back to you, because we repress it when we don't trust ourselves. We don't trust that we can figure out the answer on our own. We look to the TV or to the internet or to someone else to give us the answer, when really, if you just sit quietly and listen to that still small voice inside you, you know the answer. You just want external validation somewhere, right? So as you strengthen that muscle testing muscle,
yes,
your intuition grows. And so many times you're with a client, you know the answer before you've finished the question, right? The knowing just comes.
Yes.
And another part of what you said was, you were talking about Louise Hay. A lot of people have heard of Hay House and Hay House Publishing, right? That's all based on the early work of Louise Hay and the belief she had in so much of our physical dis-ease can be, if we really search for the root cause, can be attributed to emotional stuff that we held on to deal with later, right? And so your word was repressed. A lot of times what I tell people is, you go through a traumatic event, you deal with part of it, and then you're just done, and you're like, I'll just deal with the rest later. Right. And then you keep stacking up that pile of things you're going to deal with later, and I'll deal with that later, and I'll deal with that later. And finally, go back to your metaphor, it blocks your river. There are so many stones in that river, the water can't move now. So what an emotion code practitioner does is help remove those rocks so the river starts to flow, which is what you felt in your very first session.
And then to add to your point, those emotions that we've unconsciously pushed down to deal with later, we don't typically deal with later on our own, right? Consciously, because life goes on, we move on, and life is moving fast, right? But what happens is that we're attracting lessons and experiences to us so that we can address that emotion that is still part of our energy field, that is in us, that is in our mind body. And so often what people, come to me for is that they say, I keep changing jobs, but I have the same asshole boss, right? And it's like, because there's something in you, right, that experiences in you. And this is when I get into archetype work, which is that we have archetypes living within us, really, and we keep projecting that. So it's really internalized mother, internalized father, right? And those experiences keep coming up because that part of us wants to we want to make peace with that part of ourselves and release it and let it go so that we can be free of it and create new experiences, right? And so that can also express itself in physical symptoms and illnesses as well.
Cool stuff, huh?
It's incredible. It's yeah. And once I start talking about it, I keep bouncing from subject because it's incredible. It's incredible work. It really is. And I think it's so out there, Jean, for a lot of people still to this day. And it's not easy because, having this knowledge it feels a little overwhelming, but it's really empowerment. It's really becoming empowered about your own life, whether it's your health, whether it's your business, whether it's your finances, whether it's your love life, and not putting it in the hands of somebody else all the time, but really taking the power back and saying, no, I know what's best for me and my health, and I need help, perhaps maybe instead of going to chemo, I'm going to go to Jean, right? to get help with that. And so that's really the key. It's taking our power back and knowing that we all have the power within us to create different circumstances or to create optimal health if we want it.
And that can be so hard. It sounds like such an easy thing, but we are so conditioned to find the answers outside of ourselves. And that if it's that easy, it must not be right.
Right. That's it. That's the trick of the ego. Yes. Because when we hit the wall, the obstacle, when we think, oh no, then this isn't working. No, it's not working. Right. And it's hard because it requires us growing up. It requires growing up and changing and becoming something different than our past and what we were taught,
Well, that's another part too. Sometimes what I call energy work can feel like I'm being disloyal to my religion or to my parents or to my community or to my doctor.
Yeah.
But it's your life.
Right.
And it's your responsibility to make it what it has the possibility of being. It's not their responsibility to grow your world. It's yours. But that's so hard when we're so used to giving away our power. I like you use those words because personal power is a big deal for me, right? Take back your personal power. That's all over my website because that is such a firm part of my belief in the work. Yeah. You get to decide. You choose. Nobody else gets to tell you, oh, take this medicine. No, they can suggest, but you ultimately decide.
You ultimately decide. Yeah. And I think that the fear of responsibility of that is like, okay, but what if I make the wrong decision? And so many of us think that, okay, so what if you do? So what if you do? The beauty of you being responsible for you is that you can pivot and find a way to overcome making quote unquote the wrong decision. But this is where, again, the Eastern philosophy is very helpful. I mean, because there is no such thing as the wrong decision. Because everything is leading you to learn and grow so that you may overcome it, make peace with it, and take your power back and embody more of that life force energy and that power to become more autonomous and independent and make, more conscious decisions for your own life.
And it may be that decision wasn't totally wrong. It was just you need to pivot just slightly to make it fit your circumstance with your health or with your business or with your relationship, whatever it is, with your job, right? So as long as you're always aware and you keep focus on what it is you want, then you can look back, step back and say, is this moving me towards my goal or away from my goal? Yeah. Or just sideways, right? So things never go in a straight line. That's not the way nature works. So you're always, going with the waves. Yeah. As long as you keep your eye on that lighthouse over there, if that's where you're headed, then keep making little course corrections. That's not a failure. It's not
Exactly.
course correction.
Exactly. Yeah.
Unfortunately, we're coming up closer to the end of our time together. Time flies.
I know already. Oh my gosh. I can't believe it. Holy cow.
Yeah. So we were talking earlier, and you mentioned you have a resource for our listeners.
Yes. Yes. So something that I incorporate into my work is meditation and visualization. And I have recorded an amazing visualization to help my clients really understand what is keeping them stuck. And it is tapping into their own unconscious wisdom to know how are they kind of stopping themselves, how are they self-sabotaging. And so I would love to offer that visualization for your listeners to help them.
Cool. So we will have that link right below in the show notes. All you have to do is click on the link. If people want to learn more about you, you're where? LinkedIn, Instagram?
Yes. So I am on both. I'm on LinkedIn and on Instagram. And you can find me on LinkedIn through my name, Shadi Sadeghi. And on Instagram, I am, my handle is @thisLifeFulfilled. And that is really my brand now, This Life Fulfilled. So you're going to stay tuned. You're going to find a website for that soon.
Cool. And we will have links below in the show notes. So if you didn't catch all that, click on the links and we'll get you there.
Thank you so much, Jean.
Yeah. Do you have any final thoughts for our listeners?
You know, I think what you mentioned about intuition is something that I want everyone to know, that they have the answers within them always. And even if you do have a mentor or a practitioner, emotion code practitioner, or a guide or a coach helping you, the answers are still in you to get you to the next step, the next right step. And really, if you're on your own, through stillness, we can find those answers when we go inward and really just ask ourselves. If we're paying attention and listen, then it's incredible where we can be guided.
Cool. I totally agree. I want to thank you for being here. It was a really interesting conversation. I like having conversations with people who have a lot of things in common with the way I've lived my life or the decisions that I've made. And, between the travel and the energy work and the previous corporate, all that kind of stuff. We just floating on down the river together.
I know. And hopefully inspiring some people along the way to join us.
Exactly. And to my listeners out there, thank you once again for tuning in. I hope to see you next Tuesday for another episode. But until then, this is your host, Jean Border, with the Focused Practical Dreamers Journey podcast. Until next time.
We trust you enjoyed this episode of the Focused Practical Dreamers Journey podcast. Energy work to better your business. Hosted by energy healer Jean Border. Remember to visit our website at www.focusedpracticaldreamer.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Focused Practical Dreamers Journey.